Hi, and welcome to Neil's Han Dynasty. Please like, share, subscribe, buy some silver, some platinum. Platinum's heck cheap right now. And be kind, helpful, grateful. And enjoy the holiday spirit. This is Valentine's Day candle. No, actually, this right here is a trick I learned. This right here, the heat just goes straight up, and this doesn't radiate much heat. You put one of these in with holes on the side here. This whole thing is mega hot, and I'm still getting heat up here. It radiates more heat. It's a little trick you can use to help warm your house up if you don't want, prices going up. But that's not what this is about. This is more of an I told you. Wow, someone's got themselves something going on. This is more of an I told you so video. When Sri Lanka went bankrupt, I did a report before my mom died, so it was before October. It's probably August or September. I did a report on Pakistan's going to be the next one to go bankrupt, and they're all part of the One Belt Road Initiative, and how China's going to fall economically and all this other stuff. And it takes a while for countries to fall. Sri Lanka did go bankrupt. China took a several $100 billion hit on that one. He is a little rascallion tonight. And now here's a report on Pakistan, the next Belt Road Initiative nation to go bankrupt. So I say again, how can China handle all of its internal issues, all of its external issues, and all of its money that it lent out to all these countries, and they're all going bankrupt on them? How long do you think they can stay solvent? Yeah, America's got problems, but we didn't finance any countries that are going bankrupt. This is the second one, and there's going to be more. China's DOA.
It's all over the news that Pakistan may default on its debt, that it might go the Sri Lanka way, that Pakistan's bankruptcy is imminent. The latest doomsayer is the credit rating agency Fitch. It has downgraded Pakistan's issuer default rating to a CCC-. That's considered a junk rating. But what does all this mean? How can a country go bankrupt? How will it affect Pakistan's citizens? Let's start with understanding sovereign debt. Like any person or company, a country can borrow money. Since it's an independent sovereign nation, the debt is called sovereign debt. Why does Pakistan need to borrow money? For a host of things. Importing goods, building infrastructure, funding government schemes, all of it requires money. Why can't the Pakistani government use money it's collected through taxes? The short answer is that it doesn't generate enough. Its expenses are more than its revenues, so it needs to borrow money. So who does Pakistan borrow from? There are various sources for funds. China, multiple Gulf nations, and the International Monetary Fund have all lent money to Pakistan. Countries also raise money through issuing government bonds. However a country raises it, there's always one rule with debt. Everyone has to pay back their loans at fixed intervals. So what happens when a country doesn't have the money to pay back its loans? What happens when a country's economy is on the brink, like in Pakistan's case? Usually the consequences start before the country defaults. When a country is seen as unable to pay, its currency usually tanks. As it loses its value, the situation spirals. Since trade usually occurs in US dollars, essential imports become more expensive. The prices of food and fuel go up. This extra cost is passed on to citizens who face staggering inflation, something that's already happening in Pakistan. Since the government in crisis faces higher bills, it usually restricts imports. That's happening in Pakistan. The country's forex reserves aren't even enough to cover a month's worth of imports. Import restrictions translate to shortages. That's what happened in Sri Lanka, where people waited in long lines to get a bare minimum amount of petrol. Expensive food means many people are forced to go hungry. Imported medicines become scarce and the people suffer. For the country, additional funding becomes hard to come by. After all, why would anyone lend to a country likely to default? More hoops need to be jumped through to secure funding. Case in point, Pakistan and the IMF. The IMF has conditions that need to be met before it sends money. They want concrete steps taken, like raising taxes and cutting subsidies. Steps to fix the economy. These can be good for the economy, but increase the hardships of the common people. Austerity measures can be deeply unpopular and lead to citizens voting out the government in power. But to not do anything also invites public ire. People can take to the streets to demand regime change. The Sri Lanka protests are a recent example. Basically, the government is caught between a rock and a hard place. And no matter what, the people will suffer. Now let's look at what happens when a country goes bankrupt and can't pay its dues. This is called a sovereign default. First, this affects the country's reputation. All future loans will likely be more expensive. After all, the risks are high, and more loans will definitely be required. Defaults are the result of an economic crisis. The country needs to spend money to get out of its mess. It will need to borrow this money. The question then becomes, who will lend to it? Remember, previous lenders have already faced losses. Defaulting countries usually try and restructure the debt, which means partial repayments. Or they ask for debt rollovers, delaying loan repayments for some time. Either way, the lenders lose money. This means that economic recovery is difficult without staunch allies. Sri Lanka had India to help out. Greece had Europe. But what about Pakistan? Can it depend on China to bail it out when the time comes? Beijing seems to be dumping Islamabad, treating it like a bad investment. Pakistan is staring at a deal or default endgame. But the problem is, it can't find takers for any deal.
No one will finance their debt. That means sovereign default. Second Belt Road country. There's probably 3 more to happen. By then, China will be bankrupt, and the whole world will be a different place. My personal prediction, without knowing anything and being stupid, I say China's going to break apart into 3 to 5 separate countries, like maybe the Tang Dynasty, the Han Dynasty, and a few other dynasties. And then, eventually they'll fight over internal, and maybe in a couple 100 years or so, one of those dynasties will take over. But that's just my prediction. But China's definitely, CCP, not China, CCP is definitely going to be gone within 10 years maximum. I doubt they'll last that long. That's why I say BRICS. What? If you look at the report I did about 2 weeks ago on South Africa. Okay, so China is a C in BRICS. South Africa is S in BRICS. South Africa, the world's largest platinum producer, shutting its power off in a national emergency. Mines are probably going to be shutting down. Platinum's going to go through the roof. Whoo! Once the world-leading platinum provider stops providing, that's supply and demand. That's basic economics you should have learned in maybe 6th or 7th grade, but I know you didn't. That's called supply and demand. Look it up, Google supply and demand curve, and they come up with a price as to the supply and the demand, which usually sends it through the roof. But hey, I've only been telling you to buy platinum for over a year now because I've seen this coming, and people like Rick Rule and others just don't see it coming because, after about 50 years of doing something, you have blinders on and you don't see opportunity. I see opportunity. I see opportunity. I've told a couple people about little different stocks I'm picking, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, opportunity. It's everywhere. Don't single-mindedly put blinders on. Be focused only on silver, gold, and platinum. Look at other shit, man. Other shit's gonna be flying too. Just make wise choices. Research. Do your own research. I like bringing shit to you, but don't trust me. None of you know me. Don't trust me. Research your own. I hope it just sparks a little something inside you that says, hey, I think he's full of shit, but it's interesting. Let me research that. Then you gain knowledge, and that is the best investment you'll ever make. Have a good night.